We find out who takes Luke's lightsaber off of Bespin, plus we have Kylo and General Hux fighting an Ally, all in this week's episode of Star Wars Weekly. Hello everybody, it's Starrapter here, and welcome back to another Star Wars Weekly episode where I break down the latest in the comics, novels, TV series, and more. And it's been a couple weeks, not because I wanted to take a break, but there was literally nothing to talk about. There was no new comic releases since the beginning of January with the Rise of Kylo Ren issue number 2. But this week we have two comics to talk about, one from Marvel, one from IDW. So let's jump right on in to issue number 2 of Star Wars. So remember, this just relaunched. This is issue number 2 of the flagship series. We are in that space between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It's approximately 1 year's worth of time, and Charles Soule is behind the writer for this series, and he is doing a phenomenal job with really tying in questions I had with the movies for the longest time. We're getting our answers already in this second issue. So last we left off, didn't realize that there was a span of time in between Luke, Leia, Chewie, and Lando leaving Cloud City to where we see them at the end of episode 5, where they are on the medical frigate. There was actually a big battle there introducing one of these new officers, and by the end of last issue, they arrived at the 4th Division of the Rebellion's fleet. And this is where we pick up. We have this conversation between between Lando and Chewie and Leia and Luke. And she's trying to see what's going to happen with the Rebel fleet, because last issue we found out that they are being tapped. All their communication is being tapped. So if they send out a signal to another remnant of the Rebellion's fleet after the Battle of Hoth, both of those signals will get traced and they will get hunted down by the Empire. So she's trying to solve this problem, where we have Lando and I'm so caught up with saying Han because I'm so used to it. Lando and Chewie are going to be trying to track down Han. There we go. And last I see him is on Tatooine. So this is where things jump right off from the end credits of The Empire Strikes Back. We see Luke getting his hand, we see Lando, we see Chewie going to Tatooine. So we're getting to understand what the heck happened. Were they sitting on Tatooine for a whole year? Well, we find out in this story that they go to the planet of Tatooine, and I love the interplay between Lando and Chewie, because Chewie's sitting there saying, hey, I'm the pilot of the Falcon. Leia's literally making Chewie go with Lando so he doesn't do any funny business, because of course she should be in all of her own right not to trust Lando because he betrayed him, but then he's kind of helping him, so we don't know whose team he's really on. So we have Chewie, we have Lando, and of course Chewie's not really high on the idea of babysitting Lando, so they go to Tatooine, and guess what? There is a whole force of TIE fighters that are ready to intercept the Falcon. And this really makes a lot of sense, because the last we seen the Falcon on Tatooine, it was escaping Maz Eisley. And, you would think by this point there would be a all points bulletin on the Millennium Falcon throughout the galaxy. So it makes perfect sense that they would be right on him. But then out of nowhere, the TIE fighters get demolished by this gang. And this gang has an ARC 170 and a bunch of mismatched ships. We find out this is called the Harlock gang. They're full of Weequays and maybe some other aliens, so I did enjoy seeing the Weequays there. And they are there to basically think that is Han, but it's really Lando. And this is where we get this awesome mic drop moment of Lando. And Lando talking his way out with the smooth talker he is out of every situation. Remember, they've used all the missiles in their last battle, so they don't really have a lot of defensive or offensive capabilities to take on this many ships. So Lando talks his way out of it, and he literally drops the headset. Like, he dropped the mic. I thought that was freaking hilarious. That was great. So they get down to the planet, and we see them meet Jabba the Hutt. And Jabba the Hutt is not going to take this crap from Lando, because the whole mission is them to get to Tatooine to find out if Boba Fett delivered Han yet. And that hasn't been the case. So that's leading me to believe, like, okay, what's going on with Boba Fett? He should have been there by now. Why isn't he just going straight to Jabba's palace? So none of these people in Jabba's palace knows that Han was even in carbonate to this place yet. So we have this deal that opens up between Lando and Jabba, and I like the interplay a lot, being that Jabba's like, hey, I already have the Tabana gas, that deal with the Empire, because Lando offered a deal with him, and he's like, the Empire controls Cloud City, doesn't make any sense. So Lando's about to get thrown in the Rancor's pit, and of course, with his smooth talking, he gets his way out of it, saying, hey, look, I also play for the Rebels too, I can give you some information. He's on his way out of there. And then he meets up with Luke Skywalker, who has just got fitted for his new hand. And we see how he is struggling just trying to hit a drone with a blaster. And it's even Lando senses it, like, hey man, the Force is not on your side right now. He is in a complete flux. The last issue we left off, and he is having total complications with figuring out all his place and everything in the galaxy, because he's been lied to by Obi-Wan and Yoda, saying that, you know, Darth Vader is not his father, but now Darth Vader is, so he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he's ever going to become a Jedi. He is just lost. So Lando says, hey, look, I know you lost the lightsaber. I know those things are very rare. As we've seen the Darth Vader comic series, this was also written by Charles Soule. The Emperor pretty much destroyed every lightsaber you can find. He just demolished them. He doesn't want to have any kind of recognition of the Jedi. So it's very hard to get a lightsaber. So Luke kind of says, okay, I'll take you to Cloud City. I'm not really sure what Lando's endgame with that is. Does he want to just get out of the way and take over Cloud City even though it's being run by the Empire? I'm not really sure what's going to happen. And that to me is super exciting, because at the end of this issue, they're talking about the lightsaber, and Luke has a sense in the Force where he's able to see in the past this figure that actually grabs his lightsaber once he got his hand chopped off back when he was on Bespin. You see in that panel, the lightsaber in the hand is going down. Somebody else catches the lightsaber, and they got to be Force sensitive because they are talking through the Force. It looks like in those blue bubbles. That means like a telepathic communication, which could only mean there's another Force sensitive out there that we have no idea who the heck it is, and that is so exciting to find out in this era of Star Wars storytelling. That somebody else has that lightsaber. We always want to know at least I always want to know. That story for another time that Maz Kanata talks about when, it brings up in Takodana with Han Solo about where'd you get that lightsaber from. Maybe we're finally going to get that story told about how it gets to Takodana and what happens with Luke and how he has to take and construct his own lightsaber, which I really hope to see in this series of comics. Seeing him construct that lightsaber, seeing if it's definitive enough, if that is Qui-Gon's old kyber crystal that Luke might find from Obi-Wan's place, although I think it's been destroyed at this point as seen in Volume 1 of Star Wars. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about this issue a little bit more. We get another reference to the High Republic. If you guys aren't already aware, everybody's assuming, and I mean everybody as far as like making Star Wars down there who is very reputable, put out a nice article saying, hey, look, we have some sources. The High Republic is going to be like intertwined with Project Luminous and have books and comics explaining about 300 to 400 years ago in the prime of the Republic, aka the High Republic. So now, I believe this is the third reference. I think the first one goes all the way back to...
I'm always learning more.
Okay, apparently Alexa is listening to me talking about Star Wars. Okay, she wants to learn more about Star Wars. I'm going to keep on talking about Star Wars. Getting back to it before I was interrupted by Alexa, we have three references to the High Republic, right? We have one in Dooku Jedi Lost. We have another one that was recently in The Rise of Kylo Ren issue number 2. And here we go. Wouldn't you know, another one written by Charles Soule, who's also behind one of the stories in Project Luminous. We have the High Republic, and this is our best glimpse at the High Republic yet. It goes in line with what he said in issue 2 of The Rise of Kylo Ren. Okay, a couple hundred years ago, the High Republic, they weren't that traveled. They weren't that dispersed as we are now in the galaxy. So during there's different areas of space, especially in the Outer Rim. They have to set up kind of a buoy system, some kind of device that's able to guide people through the harder reaches, the uncharted territory of space. So apparently we have this new Commander Grek, and I don't think this guy has been in Star Wars yet. He just appeared, and I looked it up in Legends. I don't think he's been in Star Wars, period. Correct me if I'm wrong. This guy is saying our plan, Operation Starlight, is to reactivate this kind of this beacon, if you will, that's going to alert the rest of our forces that are separated from this communication blackout to band together. And that's really the crux behind the destiny path of the name of this arc for Star Wars. So if you guys actually looked into the Trevorrow episode 9 script, Duel of Fates, there is a big portion of the plot that supposedly was going to use the First Order as doing a communication blockade for the Resistance, and the way they would get past that is going to a very old Republic type beacon and sending out communication that way. this almost sounds exactly the same as that. So I'm wondering if, Charles Soule might have had access to this kind of this kind of script and said, oh, I'm going to weave that into my story. If it didn't, it's cool, whatever. But I'm just excited that we're talking more about the High Republic. It's giving more credence to that. Now we got a date, by the way, February 24th. This representative from ABC News, he's verified on Twitter and stuff, and he said that's when the news is going to break, February 24th for Project Luminous. So yeah, make sure you are prepared for that. But getting more into this issue, I really did enjoy all the references to Bail Organa, with Leia saying, we're not giving up. It's because of my father that we even have this thing existing. We can't live down his image. We have to live up to my father, Bail Organa. That to me was awesome. Seeing Chewie and Lando and getting a lot of the Solo a Star Wars story vibes from this issue and this storyline so far is great. And it really shows why I love Solo a Star Wars story, because they're placing these big parts of the story and making them meaningful in the current original trilogy storyline. So we're getting to understand, Chewie and Lando and Han were kind of close at some point. I guess you could say close in a certain perspective. So seeing that play out is something that I've really been enjoying. But overall, this issue is another phenomenal entry in Star Wars, and I think Volume 2 is going to be even better than Volume 1 of Star Wars, because if we're judging by the first 2 issues alone, we are going to be on quite the ride, and I'm enjoying every single page of it. I hope you guys are too. Let's talk about Star Wars issue number 2 in the comment section down below. And the other comic I want to talk about this week is Star Wars Adventures issue number 30. So as always, we get 2 stories in this one. We get Loyalty Test as well as The Lost Stories. So Loyalty Test, I believe, is our first interaction between Hux and Kylo Ren in a story in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. As we know it, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren is in charge of the First Order. So we're seeing the dynamic in this issue between Kylo Ren and Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. And well, we see the dynamic is playing out to where Kylo Ren is the absolute one in control, but then General Hux is, trying to play to his loyalties or trying to trust one another. They decide that Kylo Ren decides that, hey, I don't need the stormtroopers to crush the resistance and go to this planet. I could do this on my own. Gets down there. Turns out that he actually needs Hux's help, because Kylo Ren could have gotten killed by an Acklai if it wasn't for General Hux using his blaster. So that to me was a pretty short, concise, simple story. But again, it is nice seeing that time in between those movies to see what these characters were like. Because in, episode 9, there's a big thing that happens. And it's all because of the dynamic between Hux and Kylo Ren that was ended in The Last Jedi. The other story we also get is based on the characters from Tales from Wild Space. We have the characters going to this place, running away with plans to this. It very much reminded me of like a Dr. Aphra issue, because the character Milo Graf, I think his name is. I could be wrong, but the kid is running away from the First Order troopers. He gets the information. Then he calls up, this is the really cool part, he calls up Lina Graf, who is the one character that's very consistent through the Tales from Wild Space books, as well as the Tales from Vader's Castle comics. She's the one in there. She's his aunt at this point. Remember, we're going a little bit further in the future. And basically, this issue is about them him going to this forgotten place, looking for treasure. And of course, he was a little loud because it's a library, and this ancient droid comes up to him and says, "You have to be quiet or I will kill you." And this droid, very benevolent, very cheery sounding droid, suddenly has 20 guns jutting out of its carapace. So it's a Star Wars adventure story, very simple, very to the point. It's a fun story. So yeah, that is about it for Star Wars Adventures issue number 30. Next week we can look forward to another brand new Star Wars comic series starting up by Marvel. This one is the third iteration of Darth Vader. It's going to be Darth Vader issue number 1. This one also takes place in between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. In this one, we see Darth Vader going back to Tatooine. So, very interesting. We're going to see if maybe some events kind of intersect with Star Wars. I hope there is some crossover, because we're also going to get the Bounty Hunter comic starting in March. So, hopefully we'll see like a mega crossover between all these characters. I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this week's comics. Let's talk about them in the comment section down below. Star Wars Resistance just had its final episode. I have that reviewed. I have every single episode of the series reviewed, all on the channel right now. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. And I will also be doing the Clone Wars reviews. I have my reaction, my trailer breakdown on a channel right now. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and simply support the channel by subscribing, and do hit that notification icon so you'll be notified when videos go up in the future. That is going to do it for me, Starrapter. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also included 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.